When our children and grandchildren start looking into colleges, there are so many things to consider. Do they want a big school or a small school? Do they want an urban location? Do they want a more suburban or rural location? What about the academics that the school is focused on? What about the sports or the music or the extracurricular activities? And then what do they need to put together? And finally, parents are constantly wondering, how do you pay for this? In my conversation with my guest, Honoria DaSilva-Kilgore, we cover a lot of territory to help parents and college-bound students be successful in their search for the right school. My name is Wendy Green, and I am your host for Hey Boomer. Hello, Hey Boomer listeners. So nice to have all of you with us today. I was thinking back to when I first applied to college and when my children applied to college. And particularly when I applied and when my daughter applied, we didn't have a lot of guidance and knowledge about what to consider, like what schools to go to and why and how to apply and any of that. Basically, what my father told me was pretty much what I told my daughter. You're going to go to a state school somewhere not too far away and just go ahead and try and get in. Now, when my son applied, we had a little bit more guidance. His guidance counselor did talk to us about safe schools and reach schools, and he had an English teacher that helped him with his essay, but nobody talked to us about how to find money for the. So I applied, I filled out the FAFSA, we applied for financial aid, and we, took what we took and got what we got, and we were just grateful for that. But now, my granddaughter will be finishing up her sophomore year of high school, and she is a very bright, talented, in many ways, beautiful girl. And of course, I am a proud grandmother. But she is a very busy high school student. Her parents also are very busy with their own lives, with the lives of both of their children. And now they're thinking about, well, what do we do about college? I mean, Grayson talks about wanting to go to medical school. And so the foundational college is going to be very important for her. Well, where do we apply? And how do we apply? And what should we look for? And how do we find the money for this? All of those are big questions. So when I first heard about what Honoria, my guest, is doing, I was very excited about talking to her. And then I thought, you know what? Many people are in my same boat where they have grandchildren that are starting to get to that age of approaching colleges. And they may be wondering the same things. Not that we as grandparents have direct influence, as we all know, that does not happen usually. But we can also take the information we learned today and share this with our adult children and share this with our college-bound grandchildren and take some notes and start that conversation and help them get the right start to being successful in college. So get out your notepads, save this link, be sure and share this with your adult children, your grandchildren. Listen, share this with anybody you think this would be helpful for, because this is going to be packed full of information. And share your comments, share your questions. This is an interactive show, and I already see several of you out there. Thank you for saying hi. I'm so glad that you're here. And let's get started. So I'm going to open up the green room and let Honoria in. Hi there.
Hi,
How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I am really looking forward to this conversation. So let me do a brief intro, okay?
Sure.
So Honoria DaSilva-Kilgore has a Bachelor's of Art in Political Science from Regis College and a Juris Doctor from Syracuse University College of Law. She's been practicing law for over 25 years, and her practice focuses on helping clients with numerous financial matters, things like real estate, bankruptcy, estate planning, and yet one recurring theme that often crops up is the inadequate planning regarding higher education, which can often lead to a negative lifelong consequence. So, Anadia founded Personal College Counseling, PCCI, on the belief that a college education is one of the most important tools that can be utilized for success, and that all college-bound students deserve to get good advice about where they should consider going, how to get there, and have the best shot of achieving that dream. So I want to introduce you all to Anadia and ask you, is there anything I left out in that introduction that you'd like to add?
No, I think you nailed it. Um,
Good.
because part of what I do in my law practice, I know so much and I find out so much about my clients. And yeah, that element of what I call over borrowing for college can be really detrimental, whether it's the student that overborrowed or the parent with the parent plus loans and all this other stuff. Um, you got to really know what that's going to mean for later because it doesn't go away. It's kind of like
It,
death and taxes.
yeah,
They stick with you,
absolutely.
you know?
And, with my kids, we all had loans that it took years to pay off.
Yeah,
So
and
I'm glad we're talking.
I'm not adverse to student loans at all. I think it's a necessary part of the game, but you don't want to over borrow. And that's what I
Mhm.
want to stress. You need to stay within reality. Some people, they just get so caught up in, oh, but it's this name school, so I'm going to borrow $100,000 to go there instead of 30 to go somewhere else that is equally fine for what they're
Yeah.
doing, and you have to be um, ambitious but realistic at the same time.
Yeah, so let's back up a minute and start with you have this successful law practice, and somewhere along the line, you got this interest in college counseling. Can you tell me what brought you to that and about how long you've been helping kids prepare for college?
It's been a few years now, and it really started with my own experience when my son was looking, um, because I just delved into it head first and all in as I do with anything I take on. Sometimes he didn't appreciate that as much as he should, but now he does.
Oh, yeah.
But we were looking, anywhere that met his needs. And those needs at the time were he was very interested in media, and he still is. He's graduating with a media communications degree. He was a fencer, and he was rated, and we fenced nationally, so we were all over the country.
Oh.
Which means whenever we were all over the country, if there was a school within driving distance and we had downtime, guess what we went and did? We checked out schools. Um, he'll say we looked at 60. I think the count is more like 42. But
It's still a lot.
it's still a lot, and it's over 11 states personally that we did. So by the time he was done, he really knew the difference between, okay, urban, suburban, uh, big, small, densely populated, spread out, whatever it is. He had seen the gambit, and that was very comfortable for him because he knew what he was getting into. But we would needed to find something that achieved his academic interests, where he would be able to fence on a team at a competitive level still. But at the same time, we knew we didn't want to be in a D1 program. He was not going to be
What is D1?
Division One
Oh,
NCAA.
okay. All
So
right, for fencing.
NCAA schools, yes, they go Division One, Division Two, Division Three,
Okay.
and we knew he wanted to be in a Division Three program because the focus there is student athlete, not athlete slash student, and there's a big
Okay.
difference with that. But also, only D1 programs specifically usually offer scholarship money for athletes, and we didn't qualify for financial aid. So like, oh well, we're screwed. We're just going to end up having to pay, whatever that is. So of course we have our budget. We know how much we had saved, and we were practical. But still, we ended up getting merit aid, and merit aid is free money, and that's where people are really missing out. You have to know where your opportunities are to get assistance that way and lower the cost.
So tell me, what is merit aid? What does that mean?
There's two kinds of money that we're talking about when you're applying to colleges for help. One is going to be financial aid, and most people think of it just that way. What am I getting for financial aid? But financial aid really is based on financial need, and that calculation is going to be determined by that FAFSA form that everybody needs to fill out. And everybody, I mean that. Even if you don't qualify and I make X dollars, I'm never going to get a penny in financial aid. Well, most schools aren't going to consider you for the next tier, which is merit aid, if you didn't follow the FAFSA, so they can say, oh, they're not getting money from this pool, so we'll still consider them for merit aid, okay? So financial aid based on your finances. I can't change that formula. I have no input or ability to change what my client parents make or what they do for a living or any of those things. It is what it is. And if that qualifies you for some financial money, great. But there's more. Then you have the merit aid. And as the term implies, it's because you have merit, or let's just say value. You're value adding something to the institution that you're applying to. And that has different meaning for different places. So, for example, every school wants to have bragging
So value
rights.
adding to the institution you're applying to. So not necessarily because you scored all A's, it's what you're bringing to that school.
Yes, and it starts with academics first, of course. Everything I do is always premised on academics first, right? Everything else is frosting that we're adding to our nice cake here. But let's start with that academic profile. The more you stand out academically at the school you're applying to, the more merit you have academically. By the same token, the exact same student applying to a school where everyone else also has a 4.0,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. That's your outstanding achievement in the world, which is pretty darn fantastic. But it's not going to get you merit aid there. You're the same as every other 4.0 student at Harvard, right? Where
Right.
else are you going to stand out? So you want to be, I focus on range when you are applying to schools. It has to have the things you want academically, and you academically have to be in their range. And the higher within the range you are, the better your chances are of getting academic merit aid. There is a direct link with dollars between your GPA and your SAT scores. And some schools are very forthright, right on their information, if you go digging, about if you apply here and you get in and you have a 3.5 to a 3.78, you will qualify between $5,000 and $15,000, and your SAT score has to be a minimum of X. Very nice when they're very clear. They're not always so
Okay.
clear, but it's helpful. So academics stands out. And then what else? What else is making you stand out at a particular school? So what I was going to say before is the easy one is every school wants to brag about diversity. But what does diversity mean to that institution? So they like to say we have students from all 50 states. Maybe only 25 states. Maybe their best brag is 10 states. I don't know. But if it's only 10 states and you're in those 10, you're not exactly standing out to them. Where someone of equal value, academically, just with nothing else to diversify them, is going to stand out if they come outside their range geographically. That adds diversity to them. We're not even talking about anything ethnic here. This is simple. They want to brag, just like they want to brag about international students. We have students from 25 different countries or whatever. So, yeah, it adds to their profile, right?
What about all the stuff that students, the extracurriculars, the volunteer stuff?
Yes, all of that is part of your package. What, again, makes you stand out? What makes you you? My whole goal is not to take a square peg and make it round. I want to find the perfect fit for that peg, exactly
Right.
as it is, right? Not force it to fit in somewhere else where they're struggling or it's not really the right environment for them because they're not in their niche, if you will.
Okay, so Anadia, in order to learn that about a student, you've got to invest some time. So tell me how that kind of works.
Sure. I don't even go hunting for schools till I get to know the kid or the
Okay.
student. So
Uh-huh.
I spend time with first, my intake process, if you will, is to meet with the parent because the parent's job in my formula is only twofold. One, to be supportive, make sure that you're going to help and support these kids get to the schools that we eventually end up targeting because I'm dealing with minors for the most part until they're seniors, so they can't get themselves around that easily. So parents have to be at least somewhat involved. And two, financially, they have to, pay me and pay for school. So they have to be willing to want to do that. If you're just throwing out the students say, "Oh, you're on your own," well, okay, and some people do that, but their options are going to be obviously more limited than others. So I just need the parents to be supportive, to understand that this is a process, and that I expect feedback and collaboration with that student going forward. So if the parent really wants the service, but the student does not, we're not going to have a very productive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I need
Mm-hmm.
both. I need the student to want to work with me. That said, then I really talk to the parent infrequently after that. My meetings are going to be one-on-one, primarily with the student. That usually happens on Zoom, so they're very comfortable with that. Unless you happen to be local and you want to come into the office, sure. I have two cats here. They might get into the camera screen. Hopefully not. But it's not necessary at all. The format with Zoom and WhatsApp and FaceTime, it's very conducive to what we're doing, and I work around their schedule. They're on a completely different schedule than 9 to 5 adults.
Right.
So,
Right.
and that's fine. And then I really listen to them because sometimes, and this actually happens almost always, the parent has one vision of their child. My child does this, and they're interested in that, and they only want to go here or there or whatever. And then, okay, thank you. And then I move over to the student, like, I really don't like playing this sport anymore. I'd rather not. I really want to look at this, and I'm kind of interested in this or that, or I just don't know yet, or, okay, that's fine. Have you been to any schools? Have you checked any out? And oftentimes the answer is no. So you can't ask them at that point if they want a big school or a small school or a city school or an urban or suburban, which is the premise of almost all search engines, right?
Mm-hmm.
My job, as I see it, is to expand their possibilities and open them up to as many options as possible. Um, Therefore, until they get out there and start comparing some of these things, how can they answer that question? They can't. So I don't search based on that for them. I listen to what they want and what they like. And I don't expect a 15-year-old or even an 18-year-old, or in our case, way beyond that year old, to be able to say, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Mm-hmm.
it's very rare that anyone can really answer that question. And for those who can, bravo, we will focus more on that. But for the most part, I want to know what they're interested in. What is their academic forte? Where do they excel? What interests them most? Because then you want to put them in an environment where those academics stand out for them, right? And
Yeah.
then you layer the other stuff. So if you have a kid who's interested in music or playing an instrument versus a sport or a club activity, or they really want to make sure the school has certain internships in certain places or travel abroad opportunities, and it can be anything. It doesn't matter to me what that thing is. What's important is that it matters to the student.
Yeah.
And I want to find the environment for them where as much of everything they are interested in now and could be interested in later is on the plate. Because once you take it away, you can't put it back, right? And they don't even know what they don't know. There are so many courses in college they've never even heard of it because it's not
So true.
offered at the high school. So how can you possibly answer these big, big questions? I just want to know, what do they get interested about, right? What
Right.
dresses them up? Because I firmly believe if you put the student in the right environment and trust them enough to find their way, they will.
Yeah.
'Cause
See, I really like that you take such an interest in the students. And so once you identify those schools that might fit that profile, what do they do with that?
then we do deep dives. So the first is getting to know each other, and I really poke at geographically to start with. What's their comfort level? Where's their bubble? And then I try to push it out a little further, right? Because the more open you are and the more mobile you can be, the more opportunities I'm going to be able to find for you. It's very akin to shopping for a house. If you are adamant you will only buy a house in this one community, you are going to pay whatever the market says there, and it might be very expensive. But maybe 2 towns over is a little cheaper and it's the same size house and everything else is great. You just moved 20 minutes, right? It's the same thing with college, but on a much bigger level. So you want to make sure the metrics are all there and that the comfort zone is within their acceptable parameters, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So that takes me a while to put that together for them to get started. So summertime, like we're going into right now, is awesome because college kids aren't on campus, so there's not a lot to go see because you want to see them there when you go visit, like in their natural habitat,
Right.
So this is a great time to do the foundational work to get the research done. And then when I create what I call the universe of schools that we're going to...
The universe of schools.
Yes,
I like
the
that.
universe. This is your universe. This is everything that I think potentially is in consideration. And that universe, the more time I have, the better it is. But usually it's anywhere from like 40 to 80 schools. Yeah. And then within that, we focus on academic range. Remember, it always starts with the academics. What's their GPA? What's their SATs? And unlike the college counselors, high school counselors at school, I very much buck the trends on a couple of things, and SATs are one of them. Take them early, take them often. They are a tool we need to use to your advantage. Don't put all your eggs in one basket and wait till the end of junior year. What am I supposed to do with that? Not as much as I can do with it if I know early where your strengths are, what we need to work on, how often should you retake it, if at all. It's a tool, but it's a tool that should be used by us, not the other way around. And the kids get all hyped up and stressed out over SATs. And I'm like, it is what it is. We're going to use it, Yeah. It's something that's very useful to us in this search process because, again, it establishes the range. So if your GPA and your SAT scores are both within the range of what that school usually takes in as their incoming freshman class, that's a good school to focus on. And then I want the schools that we target that way. The next step is to let the student do what I call a deep dive into those. And I mean that. I need to give them enough time to do that solo research. So let's say you're going to look at 6 schools or 10 schools in a week online. Go look at what they offer. What are the academics there? Do they have what you need? They probably do, because I've screened them. But but what else do they have? Because we're not going to just say one and done. If they only have one program you like and nothing else there is appealing, that's maybe not the best fit, right? They have something, but maybe not as much as others. So you always look at the academics first. And then if there is a special interest, talent, or something else that the student wants or is involved in, I've also pre-screened for that. So I want them to look at that. Does it meet your level of expectation and involvement, right? Especially with athletes. You really kind of need to know at what level, one, you want to compete in, and two, realistically, how good are you that you are going to be able to compete at that level? Because they recruit, and you need to know. Are you
Right.
are you at Div 1 level, or Div 2, or Div 3,
Right.
or club sport, or
Yeah.
there's
And
so many different things.
And so you give the kids this list of schools, and then like some guidance on how to do the research, and then they come back and talk to you about it?
Yes, then we dissect it further. What did you like about this one or not? What did you like about that one or not? And that starts to give me the temperature of where these kids are at, right? And then you take your SATs again, because maybe, all right, in this universe of schools, maybe there's some other schools that they're really interested in, but I'm like, you need to be in this range, again, for that to be a realistic possibility. So yeah, I want to take my SAT again and try to get those extra 20, 30, 40, 50 points, whatever it is, and then we're going to research those level of schools. And once we get that feedback and we've talked it through, and the kids are excited about X, Y, and Z's, then we try to generate interest on the other side of the equation. Okay? Who are we contacting at those schools? Because you're not just going to willy-nilly get in the car and look at pretty campuses. That's a waste of time. They're all pretty, or they should be. Right? So that's not a good selling point. That's not how you invest in your education.
Okay.
We look at the metrics first, and then we focus on who do you need to get interested in you. So if it's a coach, we reach out to the coaches, and we try to set up coach interviews and visits and whatnot. And that is the precursor to getting someone interested in you enough to try to recruit you to that institution. So, funny story, for example, when we were looking, and the school my son ended up going to followed this process, and the coach at his school was very interested in him, and that started to the communication between the two of them. And we would go to a national tournament, and he'd be like, hey Nick, we're adding this program, or we're doing this, and you should check this out, and blah blah. So the communication was there. And then, as I think it was very early senior year, he's like, why don't you come do a visit and stay overnight with one of our team members and watch a practice, right? And bring your transcripts with you. Okay. And then while he's having dinner with potential future teammates, Coach so-and-so walks his transcripts over to the admissions office and got a pre-read.
Nice.
Yes, you would qualify to come in, and by the way, we have this merit aid available. You're going to get X dollars. So my son calls me from campus. Mom, I was just told I'm going to get this much money if I come here. Is that real? I'm like, oh yeah, that's real, and that puts them right at the top of our list, right? And
yeah.
You're like, oh, that's awesome. But this is the kind of stuff that can go on in the background and you don't really see. But a coach, not that they're going to get you in. Because again, if you don't academically qualify, don't expect to get money and go there. Right?
So if I'm not a student athlete, though.
But there's so many other things. What if you're into band, right? And or you want a marching band or something like that. Well,
or if I think I want to go into medicine or something, would I try and talk to the dean of biology? Or
you'd want to get maybe some information about who to talk to about their programs. I have a friend's daughter who's very much, she has a very specific focus on what she wants to do with her mathematics and statistics and how to apply that to sports and whatnot. And she's having great conversations with the heads of the different math departments at different
Yeah.
schools just to get a feeling about what their program is like. But if you're a little bit more generic in that, one of the things that I really want to do when you go visit a campus and I set up the tours is to interview with admissions, because
Mm-hmm.
that's like a job interview, and it should be a dialogue. You know, they should be trying to figure out, are you the right kid to come in to this institution? But it's also the student's opportunity to ask these questions. Tell me about this program. How many of your kids do this? Where do they intern? What's your placement rate? How many go on to med school? What percentage did? That's your opportunity, one, to show you're really interested, and two, to get valuable information if you haven't already gotten it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay?
So I have a question from the audience here, and this is
Woo!
very timely, actually, Nadia, because it's about the community college discussion. So what if we get free 2-year community college? How do you feel about students going that way? Do you think it's going to help or hurt kids that are looking into the 4-year college?
That's a good question. And I'm going to answer it as best I can and as honestly I can, because I'll always be completely honest with my audience and my clients. And I see it this way. I think you should try to get into the best school, academically rigorous that you can, that has everything you want from it, at the best price. That's my mantra. That said, community colleges are usually seen as a stepping stone for kids who, one, just absolutely can't afford anything else, or academically can't get into the 4-year schools they otherwise would have wanted to get into. And then you have the economic realities of how many of your credits transfer and get accepted. If you stay within the same state system, depending how your state works, wherever you are, will determine a lot of that. Because, like, I'm in Massachusetts, so if we have a system where you can go through the community college and then transfer those credits to a 4-year state school, and they will all transfer. But let's say now you want to go to a private school, or you're going to a different state, and you're asking them to accept all of your community college classes. That's probably not going to happen, and they're just not seen as rigorous.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you. I think that if you can get in to the 4-year college and you can get some of the assistance, the merit aid, scholarships, grants, that I think the kids that are college bound in that way will be better served, in my opinion, as well.
I agree with you, and I'm going to tell you that it is my goal and purpose to have set up this company to especially help families who think college is unaffordable, or maybe I'm dealing with a lot of first-generation college kids, and that cuts across all sorts of economic spectrums. And I'm here to tell you, if you plan right and you do it in time, and you don't wait till junior or senior year, God forbid, there is a place for you that will be financially doable.
Which leads me to my next question, because I was looking at your Instagram page, and on Anadia's Instagram page, she shows all, pictures of the kids that she's worked with and some of the money they've gotten. So I would like you to share some of your success stories of some of the schools these kids have gotten into and some of the money that they've been able to get because of some of the work you've done.
So I'm going off the top of my head because I don't have all those letters and things in front of me. But they're all success stories. That's what we want. And success depends, for each family is a different metric, if you will, right? So again, do the best you can with what you got, and we're going to see where we go with that. So I have one student, he's going to the University of Rhode Island, which is next door to us. Top, great, big school. In conventional wisdom, and most of the time, you're going to see that if you apply for an out-of-state school, the out-of-state tuition is a lot higher than in-state tuition. Um, but he's going to an out-of-state school for less money than our flagship institution would have cost him because he got a really good scholarship there. He got $48,000. Did that make that particular school the least expensive of all the ones he got accepted to? No. He could have gone to another school in the Chicago area that would have been a perfect fit, and they gave him $120,000, making that particular private school less expensive than any state school he got into.
Wow.
But he just couldn't quite push his comfort bubble that
To go to
far.
Chicago.
It
Okay.
was actually outside of Chicago in a beautiful suburb, and he had visited the school. He did everything I needed him to do to get the interest there. He met with the coach, he would have been on the team, he met with admissions, and everything was great. That's why he got a lot of money. And this essay was a kick-ass essay that we worked on for 3 months. So, yeah, it all comes together. But he also got money to go to another different Massachusetts school, and he got a lot of money to go to a lot of other schools. But at the end of the day, we're also looking at the net. So even though some other school may have given him $35,000 a year, because their price tag started so much higher, the net cost was still beyond the budget that was comfortable for that family. Okay, so we need to be aware of that. So when I say net cost, I'm talking about the cost of the school minus your guaranteed student loan, because I expect kids to have some skin in the game. So that starts at like $5,000 or $5,500 the first year, and it goes up a little bit. So that if you were to be able to graduate college with just taking the guaranteed student loans, you will come out of school with $27,000 in debt, which I think is very reasonable. So beyond that, I expect the parents to be able to make up the difference. How are you going to do that? Either you've saved enough or you need to rely on more assistance to bridge that gap. So he got that. I have another student who got great money everywhere. She was very high GPA, not so stellar SAT. So we had this, big difference in the two numbers. So it was very important for her that we focused on schools that were going to give more value to the GPA and strength of her schedule versus her standardized test score. So being test score optional for a lot of schools helped her. But also, it still gave us a range. When we first started talking, the schools she was thinking of applying to, I had to break the news to her that, sweetie, you're probably going to get into 2 out of 10 here. Let's expand that ratio and take a more portfolio-based approach so you'll have better options. Again, just about options. So she got into a bunch of schools and got different money. She actually got $100,000 from an out-of-state state school.
Wow.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's huge.
That
Yeah.
would have made her net cost like $12,000 a year. It would have been amazing. But she chose to go to our UMass Amherst, which is a great, great school in
Great
Massachusetts,
school.
which gave her zero money. But
Really?
see, same kid, same metrics, same GPA, and this school valued it at being worth $100,000.
Yeah.
And this school says, you're just as good as everybody else coming in. You're already
Wow.
getting a bargain. And it is a bargain for an in-state student. Our tuition is very good, and it's very, very hard to get into that school. And it was one of her top 2 choices, so she went there. But she could have gone somewhere else for less, is the point.
Yeah.
I will give you options. Ultimately, the family has to make the decision. But my best story so far is my student who came in as a rising junior. So we met early in the summer before junior year. The family really doesn't have a lot of money. They work hard, but they don't have any college savings. So I'm like, okay, we're going to do the best we can with what we got. Let's look at her scores and her grades and the classes she's taking. And I'm like, I'm blown away. This kid is brilliant. And mom and dad are concerned that they're not even going to be able to pay for college. Can they even go to college? Is this even in the realm of possibility? You don't want to give someone false hope. And I'm like, not only is this in the realm of possibility, I'm going to find you a school where she's going to go as close to full ride as possible. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah. But there was other legal issues involved in that particular case and things that we had to be aware of that made um, federal financial aid not possible and all sorts of interesting little things. So it is what it is. You take the peg you get, right?
Right.
And she was fantastic and did everything I asked, and we researched so many things and looked at different schools, but their range stopped at Florida up to the end of the Northeast, which is still a really good range.
That's a pretty long way.
But it's not the whole U.S. But, that is the range I had to work with. And she was solidly in the range for the Ivies. Okay?
Wow.
She got into no Ivies because everybody else is also applying to Ivies, should be solidly in the range for the Ivies. Their acceptance rates are about 4 or 5%. Harvard, for example, 4% acceptance rate this year, over 35,000 applicants. I mean, come on. Yeah, you're great, but everybody else is great too. So just be realistic about your chances. But we went beyond that, and we applied to a lot of other top-tier schools. Now, remember, they have to have the academic program she's looking for, and she wants to study architecture. She's an immensely talented artist who happens to be great at math too. I don't know how the brain works that way because mine doesn't.
Yeah.
So she was fantastic, and we ended up getting one out-of-state school, big school, gave her $10,000 a year, so that's $40,000. Another school in New England gave her about $35,000. So instead of being $55,000 a year, it would have cost her about $32,000. And then Middlebury came in. No, let's do Middlebury last. Hobart and Smith out in upstate New York. I thought that was going to be the one. The sticker price is almost $70,000 a year. And they're like breaking it down for her. Long story short, it would have cost her about $10,000 a year to go there because they gave her about $60,000 in aid.
$60,000, wow.
And then Middlebury comes in. They're up in Vermont, top liberal arts school in the country, and she's going there for, I think, $1,400 a year instead of costing $360,000 for 4 years.
Wow.
So not exactly a full ride, but
pretty close.
Pretty darn close.
Pretty close.
They are over the moon, as they should be, and it's a life-changing opportunity for that family.
Yeah.
But now, does that mean that every family is going to get a full ride? No. Because you have to go with the merit of the kid and where they stand out and where you're willing to go for them,
So there's so much more we could talk about, but what I need to do is, because we're coming to the end of our time, is to have, I know, right? There's so much more though, but I want you to leave us with 2 or 3 takeaways, and I'm going to share how people can find you as you're talking about what your takeaways would be. So,
well, 2 things then, I guess. The first thing is super simple. If you want to find the best college for your particular student and not overpay for that privilege, regardless of how much you make, you should contact me. That's the first thing. The second thing is be open to change and to expanding your horizons, because the only limits I put on my students are the ones they put on themselves. Truly, the world is their oyster. Why would you not take advantage of that?
Okay. I'm going to put your Instagram page up here too. So that was her phone number. This is how you can find her on Instagram.
Yeah, I put, like you said, updates on what the kids are doing. I like to post pictures of where the kids look, so I get campus pictures from their perspective. And also there's a Linktree link on my profile, so you can go and look at the website or look at interviews or podcasts or stuff like this.
Most of us have no idea what a Linktree is, but we are. Right. And so, and and we pronounce her name Honoria, which is why it's Nod at personalcollegecounseling.com.
Yeah.
So
you can call me whatever rolls off your tongue easier is fine.
Something nice. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and so many things to think about when you are applying for college and thinking about what's the right fit. I'm going to take a minute and tell people that I'm looking for sponsors that support what we're doing, which is inspiring people like us to know that we are relevant, to feel like we make a difference, and that people like us that are involved in their lives well into our 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. And I also want to give you a chance to support what we're doing on Hey Boomer, and you can do that through our Buy Me a Coffee link. So that's buymeacoffee.com/HeyBoomer0413, which was the date of our first show, April 13th, a year ago.
Neat.
Yeah. And I want to tell you about my guest for next week. So her name is Barbara Shaman, and Barbara was born in Germany, and she's the daughter of Holocaust survivors. They moved to the U.S. when she was a young child, and her mother always encouraged her and her brother to be the best that they could be. So Barbara had a long career as an educator and as a businesswoman. And then in 1995, in honor of her parents, she started a nonprofit in Philadelphia called Champions of Caring. And this was to support youth leaders, high school students, to become involved in public service. Recently, she initiated a program with Temple University that combined college-age students with seniors in a learning environment. And they've just wrapped this program up. So she's going to talk to us about Champions of Caring, the program they did at Temple University, her passion for intergenerational work. And we're going to be learning all about that on the show next week. So I always like to end the show with a quote from C.S. Lewis, where he says, "You are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream." So keep on dreaming for your students and your grandchildren. And thank you, Anadia, for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. And very useful information.
I hope so.
Hope to see you all next week.
Okay.
Bye.